We're out here. This is the field where the magic happens.
Benning Bites with Damon Benning. Benning Bites with Damon Benning.
Another episode of Benning Bites. Fantastic show this morning. I'd like to think they're all good. I get it. Some are a little better than others, but hopefully you think they're all good. We appreciate you being a part of what we're doing. ESPN 590, ESPN Tri-Cities. You can get us on Google, Apple, Spotify, Twitch, Facebook. That's pretty comprehensive, right? I mean, that's kind of the way that we like to look at it. The one-stop shop to do everything that you guys want us to do and talk about. That's just kind of what we do here. And fresh on the heels of Coach Rhule's press conference yesterday, and I felt like he was pretty candid. Kind of let us know what we needed to know, and we'll get the coordinators and players today and see what happens on the heels of. I was hoping that Rutgers would be ranked, but on the heels of getting a pretty difficult matchup as the Scarlet Knights come to town. Coach Rhule talked a lot about the respect that he has for Coach Schiano and vice versa. Seems to be a particular affinity by both coaches, and I think they share a lot of commonalities, right? Whether it's building and winning at tough places to play, whether it's their NFL experience, whether it's playing in similar styles. I think is something that both coaches kind of aspire to do, where they run the football and play tough defense and want to win close games. And Rutgers has been a little bit better at the latter than Nebraska has, and so I think there's some respect there from Coach Rhule when he looks at how Coach Schiano has done his program and the respect that he has. And I think this one is. It's not easy to break down, but it is kind of easy to break down. I think Rutgers is a team that doesn't give the ball away, and Nebraska is +5 in turnovers up to this point, which after 5 games, when Coach Rhule said, I want to go +7 in takeaways, I think people kind of laughed and scoffed, but they've done it incrementally, right? And it starts with just not giving the football away. And Nebraska won a game on the road in Big Ten play without a turnover, which hasn't happened in a handful of years. And so when you start to address things like that, you give yourself a chance to win. And we got into this discussion this morning that I think is pretty interesting about, what is good, what is not good. This was on the heels of Coach Rhule's press conference on Saturday, where he talked about them being a team that is growing. And a lot of you guys asked me on social media, can you do both? A couple weeks ago he said this is a good football team, and the question was, well, can you be a good football team and still growing? And the easy answer to that is yes. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. And then it kind of morphed into what we think is good. And statistically, Nebraska definitely has some areas that they need to improve on. There's no question about that. But I found it very interesting that going into, he mentioned red zone defense for Rutgers. And it was one of the things that was used against Nebraska the first couple of days of the show. Well, Nebraska's red zone offense hasn't been good, and they're 118th now, and you have to be careful about throwing out just any old statistic, right? Because Rutgers is in the exact same place Nebraska was a week ago on, let's say, third down conversion rate. They're at 51%, which was number 17 in the country. A week ago, Nebraska was number 17 in the country with a 51% third down conversion rate. They went 1 of 8 against Purdue. They are still top 40 at 45.8% third down conversion rate. So it's amazing what one game statistically could do. Conversely, we look at Rutgers' red zone defense. Coach Rhule talked about it, right? Rutgers is really good in the red zone. Well, they've only had 11 trips there, and they went in 5 of 6, giving up points heading into Washington. Washington was 1 of 5, which vaulted Rutgers. When you're only converting now, which would be 6 out of 11 in the red zone for points, that's how you get to be number 2 in the country in red zone defense. So at some point, you are who the statistics say you are, but not yet. The game is still within how does it really look? Because going into that one, Rutgers hadn't been as stout, and Washington had some issues. Right now, are those some the 3 missed field goals, the 2 turnover on downs inside the 10? Those things add up in a hurry. Washington has an untimed down because of a celebratory penalty, and they give up a touchdown. So it was a very strange game, but I just caution folks not to get enamored with statistics. It doesn't matter if it's Nebraska or Nebraska's opponent. Sometimes you just have to sit down and watch the game and see how it's unfolding. And that's why I like what Coach Rhule said during the press conference, where they are growing in incremental areas. Are there some glaring ones? Sure, and he said that, right? I mean, you could talk about kick coverage and kick returns and place kicking. And they do need to get better. That's no secret there. But when you're watching this team grow, the objective is, if you're a coach, is to get better every week. So this week against Rutgers, they'll have to be better in special teams than they were against Purdue. They'd like to be better as an offensive unit on third downs against Rutgers than they were against Purdue. Defensively, you want to be even better against the run and third down stop rate than you were against Purdue. That's the name of the game. And so as you're growing into this program that Coach Rhule talked about, it's not so much about using your opponent as the benchmark. It's about how you yourself are adjusting to what you bring to the table. And as an old teammate of mine used to say, this ain't got nothing to do with anybody else. It's all about us. And for Nebraska, that's a plan of action that may serve them well this Saturday. Make it all about you. It's another episode of Benning Bites.